The U.S. incarcerates more of our population than any other nation on earth while championing civil rights and liberty. Our goal is to deconstruct the power of the state through thoughtful, independent perspectives on our society. I am MJ.
I'm Ty Bricker. Welcome to DeCarcerated podcast episode number 5. Cinco. I can say it in my head. Today, we're going to go over a few things like we have before. Trump's indictment. Got to talk about it. We're going to talk about classified information documents. We're not just going to talk about Trump. We're going to talk about Biden and other people that have had this going on. Mel's going to talk about forgiveness and kind of like what goes along with that. But there's obviously we have political implications with this and other stuff. And then we're going to end it with our coward and hero of the week. And I usually wouldn't tell you, but I'll tell you. Today it's going to be Ted Kaczynski and the Joker, but not Jokic. But it's not going to be exactly what you think. So stay tuned if you so desire. Like the 10 of you.
Let's do it.
My family. Stay tuned. All right. The Donald has once again been indicted. And unlike the New York indictment, this seems far more serious than the New York indictment was. This time he was indicted in southern Florida, Miami, as a matter of fact. The charges, it looks like conspiracy and obstruction of justice, which honestly, obstruction, that you can charge anybody with obstruction like at any time. It's just interference, kind of. But I'm going to play a video shortly from the special counsel, Jack Smith, that originally came out Friday on the 9th. The video will further detail and explain Trump's charges. Interestingly, the grand jury was full of Floridians, being that it was in southern Florida. And who are Floridians? Generally, Floridians are super conservative, like Texas-style conservative. Trump getting indicted in Florida is like Trump getting indicted in Idaho or Montana or the Dakotas or Alabama or Wyoming. Like, it sounds weird, Trump getting indicted in any of those places at all. So, but he did. And honestly, the charges are pretty serious. It seems super serious. Like, could legit land him in prison. Kind of serious. So without further ado, let's play the video, shall we? Those dogs are going to be annoying.
Yep.
Today, an indictment was unsealed, charging Donald J. Trump with felony violations of our national security laws, as well as participating in a conspiracy to obstruct justice. This indictment was voted by a grand jury of citizens in the Southern District of Florida, and I invite everyone to read it in full to understand the scope and the gravity of the crimes charged. The men and women of the United States intelligence community and our armed forces dedicate their lives to protecting our nation and its people. Our laws that protect national defense information are critical to the safety and security of the United States, and they must be enforced.
All right, listen. Apparently all this top secret and secret information was kind of like all over the place with him. All right. Like shuffled around his residence a lot. Here's the deal. All right. When it comes to classified information, top secret information, as president, one can simply reclassify documents by stating that they're no longer classified. Like, no longer classified because I say it.
You can just say it?
Because I'm a man or woman whenever that happens.
Do you have to write it or can you just say it?
Just say it. Like, really. I mean, it's like, based on my understanding, and I mean, it's kind of my purview of experience is limited with that with the presidency, obviously. But based on what I've heard, that's like kind of all that it takes. But it has to happen, and then it has to be labeled.
Oh, okay.
Okay. When it happens, like I said, the documents will and should be relabeled. However, the documents in question were not relabeled. Okay. On top of that, apparently Trump was kind of overtly talking about these documents. Some reports even suggest that Kid Rock was like there when he was waving them around and talking about the classification of the documents. Now, like, who knows? I don't know. That's speculation, but like anything else, I've had a secret clearance and I've had top secret clearance, like unquestionably, like zero questionably. Okay. If I had classified TS documents like sporadically just spread out around my residence, and law enforcement, especially federal law enforcement, like found out about it or showed up, I'd be up shit creek without a raft. I mean, forget about the paddle. I wouldn't have a raft. The state would take a dude like me and churn him into fodder under the jail. No doubt at all about that. That has to be known.
They would have said treason.
Yep. Yeah, they would. I mean, think about,
because they'd be like, why would you do that?
what are the Julian Assange?
Mm-hmm.
You know, who's the other guy?
Snowden.
Mm-hmm. It's very similar. Very similar. And they're on the run. And people are talking about executing them for treason, some individuals in this country.
For sharing information.
Sharing information about the illegal dealings of the United States government. Yeah. So, double standard for sure. So what else have we seen? And why are Republicans primarily screaming from the rooftops that this is nonsense, or at least that there's a clear and overt double standard hypocrisy in place here? Okay. There's a few reasons for it. We're going to get into it. All right. So there's a little bit of detail with Trump's. It's all still kind of coming out because it's relatively new, but we have more information about some other stuff that's very, very similar. And the most glaring example, obviously, is the Hunter Biden laptop story. Okay. Or the Hunter Biden laptop cover up, which is kind of really like what it was. All right. The details: in 2019, Hunter abandoned his laptop at a Delaware computer shop. The shop owner repeatedly called him to come pick it up, and he never did. And based on what was on it, that kind of tells you what his psychological capabilities are right there. I mean, that laptop was full of stuff, and he didn't even return the dude's call, and it's like just a normal dude who works on computers in Delaware. So super not situationally aware.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's like, I'm sorry to interrupt, but that translates to a huge national like vulnerability with that kind of incompetence, like holding on to that level of information. Like that's terrifying.
I mean, I doubt very many people thought that he would have that level of information, especially just sitting on a private laptop. But I mean, he did. And we'll go into that level of information right now because it's extremely pertinent. And some of you may not even really fully understand. You may have heard the Hunter Biden laptop story, but probably not necessarily like really understand the full details of what's going on there, which we're still kind of really don't, but we have a decent enough grasp to kind of talk about it. Like I said, he never returned his calls. 3 weeks before the 2020 election, Hunter's laptop took center stage. And then was entirely suppressed by the media, social media, regular media, like almost immediately. Okay. What's been discovered since? ? Okay. He served. What we found out was, first of all, you have to understand this dude has like zero credentials,
right?
Zero credibility, like zero background, like zero creds.
I'd say the
Couldn't
only
get
thing
his
he has
own
a lot
clearance.
of are really negative attributes.
No way he could get his
Yeah.
own clearance.
Yep.
No way he'd pass a poly. Like, and I don't think polys are bullshit anyway. But there's no way that he would be able, like, what we're gonna find out with the money taking place here and the dealings is that he's Joe's dad. He's Joe's son.
Yeah.
Let's be real. Okay. And that's not just him. There's other people who are people's kids that get away with this shit too. All right. Like I said, he served. We found out that he served on the board of Ukrainian energy firm. He served on a board in a Ukrainian energy firm named Burisma, I believe it is, from 2014 to 2019 to the tune of $50,000 a month. He was making $50,000 a month.
For being a board member?
Yep. Additionally, introducing his father, at that time, the vice president of the United States, to his associates. This is in Ukraine. What have we been doing with Ukraine ever since?
I don't know, pumping money into him?
I mean, like immediately, lots of money, right? Okay. In 2017, Hunter Biden entered into an agreement with a Chinese company with reported ties to the Chinese government. A Chinese company with reported ties to the Chinese government and an authoritarian
Every Chinese
system.
company is tied to the Chinese government.
Right? It was CEFC, which I'm sure stands for something. Chinese Energy. All right. For consulting work. This is consulting work.
What is his background that gives him that legitimacy in consultation?
I think we already went over that.
Okay. Just checking.
Ultimately, this energy company paid $4.8 million to entities completely controlled by Hunter Biden and his uncle, James Biden, who happens to be Joe Biden's little brother. 4.8, this is like $5 million. Okay. That's not all of it. Tax evasion. Babe, I wonder, just maybe, do you think that if you receive $4.8 million from a foreign government, that the IRS might be a little bit curious?
Absolutely not. No, it's not a $600 payment on Venmo, so they're disinterested.
They're disinterested. Unless it's a $600.
They're looking at your babysitters.
We hired 70,000 new agents to go after the billionaires.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
definitely not the Uber drivers.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, definitely no way the IRS would be interested in a $5 million transaction there. Yeah, okay. Oh, and I forgot. This is just kind of like an attaboy. All right. He also received a gift of a 2.8 carat diamond.
Oh, that's so sweet. They gave him a diamond.
A diamond. That's it, which is okay. And how much is a 2.8 carat diamond worth, you ask? Well, I mean, good quality, which I'm assuming that this was good quality based on the people we're talking about here. It's around $60,000. 60,000. It could be 80,000. 60,000 for a decent quality 2.8 carat. Now, a bad quality 2.8 carat diamond is still going to put you around $8,000.
This is the beginning of an Indiana Jones movie. Who's giving diamonds to people?
Yeah, a diamond, a singular 2.8 carat diamond. It's
weird.
It's very
suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
As the kids say, it's sus.
It's a little sus.
A little sus.
Lastly, and most acceptable in my eyes personally, because now you're done with all of us and all of our freedoms, the FBI pressured Twitter to suppress the New York Post's, at that time, especially right before the election, blockbuster scoop about Hunter Biden's laptop by warning it could be part of a Russian hack and leak occupation. Now this gets deeper. Okay, that was initial. All right. Even while knowing the concern was unfounded, according to internal company records made public, Russian misinformation. Hey, remember when Hillary called Tulsi Gabbard a Russian asset sympathizer? And we talked about this before. Multiple combat deployments, fixing up dudes and chicks that have been blown up and shot up.
One of the most intelligent, well-spoken, like
minority female from Hawaii.
Oh my Lord.
And she just gets away with it.
Yep.
Like we talked about before.
Because you can just say
Because you can just say anything's Russian, especially now with Ukraine, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, one of our best days right there. Okay. Moving on. Documents posted on Twitter by independent journalist Michael Schellenberger showed that Twitter's former head of trust and safety, Yoel Roth, was contacted by FBI special agent Elvis Chan. It's kind of a funny name combination, name. Really. Elvis Chan.
Yeah, it's an odd image.
I bet his hair is awesome.
Yeah, that's what the same name.
Just hours before the Post published the first laptop story on October 14th, 2020. Why? Why would he contact him? Oh, just to suppress the story. That's all. No big deal. The FBI contacting a private mass media, social media company, informing them of what they can and cannot publish. Sounds just like free speech to me, like the very essence of the First Amendment right there, right? And it goes on. Okay, Chan's move, the FBI agent, also came after he arranged temporary top secret security clearances for Twitter executives. So the FBI could alert them to threats being 30 days before the 2020 election. They gave them temporary top secret security clearances.
That's like giving somebody a badge because you want them to do your dirty work and not telling them that you're actually the bad guy.
Yeah.
That's exactly what that is.
Just before the election. I mean, and I wonder why folks have questions. Roth, the Twitter executive, subsequently has admitted in a sworn declaration that the feds had primed him to view any reporting at all on the Hunter Biden laptop story as Russian hack and leak operation. Anything that had to do with it at all. It was expected to be put out in that way. And Chan, the FBI special agent, later also admitted under oath that the FBI warnings were severely exaggerated, right? Right before the presidential election. But that's not all, folks. It goes on. And this just came out. And so it's not totally substantiated yet, but we're going to talk about it. Joe Biden, as vice president of the United States, we come to find out now, is being accused of taking bribes. And supposedly it's on video or audio. All right, I'll play it right now. Here we go. And this is just coming out.
The foreign national who allegedly bribed Joe and Hunter Biden allegedly has audio recordings of his conversation with them. 17 such recordings.
17.
According to the 1023, the foreign national possesses 15 audio recordings of phone calls between him and Hunter Biden. According to the 1023, the foreign national possesses 2 audio recordings of phone calls between him and then Vice President Joe Biden. These recordings were allegedly kept as a sort of insurance policy for the foreign national in case that he got into a tight spot. The 1023 also indicates that then Vice President Joe Biden may have been involved in bereavement employing Hunter Biden. Based on the facts known to the Congress and the public, it's clear that the Justice Department, the FBI, haven't nearly had the same laser focus on the Biden family.
Laser focus on the Biden family. I'd say not.
I'd say no focus.
In a tight spot. I'm in a tight spot.
Tight spot.
I'm going to break out that Joe and Hunter Biden audio.
Yep.
All right. So this is new. Like I said, this just came out in the last day or two. Most of you probably haven't even heard about it. So we'll see if anything comes of it. I kind of don't think it will, honestly, just based on history and precedent. But listen, I mean, if we're going to play that and we're going to talk about Joe Biden's kids, like, we got to be honest here. Like, we must be honest, okay? Because I refuse to not be or to be like those that are not, okay? Trump's daughter, Ivanka, and her husband, Jared Kushner, received, you ready for this number? I'm going to give you a number. You're not going to believe it. You're not going to believe it. $2 billion with a B, a $2 billion check from Saudi Arabia. From Saudi Arabia.
Like from the country?
For what? I don't know. Do you know anybody named Saudi Arabia?
Probably.
For what, you might ask? Kushner's newly formed private equity firm. $2 billion for his newly formed private equity firm.
Can we take a second and talk about how all of those words mean nothing? Newly formed, new business.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's new. It has no history. Private equity firm. It might as well be Acme Explosives.
What was Epstein getting all of his money from? Private stuff.
Wh-
Lots of
the-
private stuff. What was
you-
the bank that just did this huge settlement?
JP Morgan.
JP Morgan, by the way, people, you might want to look into this. JP Morgan just did a huge settlement on the Epstein
Hush
case.
money. It's hush money.
Huge settlement because they do not want this, whatever they got involved in with Epstein, to come out. I mean, they're paying out tons of money.
Private equity firm means it's my business. You don't get to look at it. It's all about making money, and it's a conglomerate of people, so we can't ever individually be
And
prosecuted.
it's foreign
That's
money.
what those things mean.
And it's foreign money of trillionaire Saudis.
So
Trillionaires. Okay.
it's unbelievable.
Like, can we acknowledge that there's an entirely different set of rules regardless of party, and that
Yeah,
we're living in an
exactly.
oligarchy? I mean, like, that's what we are. We're not in a republic or a democratic republic. We're in an oligarchy. We're
100%.
we are controlled by powerful families or powerful groups of people. Like, that's really what it is. Okay. Because what I'm seeing here is like everybody sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, everybody sucks. Saudi Arabia has an atrocious human rights record.
Yeah.
They don't even let women drive cars.
Yep.
They behead people in public still.
Yep.
Like, and also, like, in case people haven't heard, 9/11, 2001 was like 95% Saudi Arabians. Okay. But Trump's also heavily invested in Live Golf, and Live Golf is a Saudi professional golf product that just joined up with the PGA.
Well, priorities, human rights, or golf.
I mean, members of the 9/11 survivors group are super unhappy about all of this.
Legitimately.
I mean,
so.
they have every right to be pissed off about it, man. Like, the PGA told them one thing, did another. Trump told them one thing, did another.
Mhm.
Okay. I mean, we have to be honest. Okay. If you don't like us being honest, then turn it off. But we got to be honest. All right. I mean, Trump's kids, Joe's kids, Trump, Joe. This is what we got, man. This is what we got. We're going to end up with these two. We're going to end up with Trump and Biden. Okay. Which, all right, regardless of how you feel about it, there's a lot of like real shady shit happening.
Mhm.
Okay. And whoever we elect may end up in prison. Like, seriously.
Yeah.
There's a possibility that because of this indictment with Trump, that he could get elected president and then sentenced to prison. There's also a highly possibility of this stuff with Biden, with the what is it?
Ukrainian stuff or the Chinese stuff?
All of it.
Yeah.
And well, with the bribes.
Oh, yeah.
The bribe stuff that just came out a couple days ago, like, is just now happening, that his 80-year-old ass is gonna end up in prison. I mean, like, I don't know. It's crazy. And for some reason, in a country this vast and this large, I have a really hard time to think like this is the two best. Hey, is there nobody out there that's even listening to this that's like a better choice
I'd
than
say
these two?
90% of the people who've made it through episode 5 are better choices than
I mean, this is
everybody
re-
else. Yeah.
I mean, we don't have anything else to offer.
No, we do. It's just all of it is suppressed and hidden
We're
because
going to end
there's
up
an
with those
agenda.
two. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
Because we're in an oligarchy.
Exactly.
That's why. All right. All right. January 6, 2023, Mike Pence, former vice president, was found to have classified documents in a safe in his home, also illegal.
At least he put him in a safe.
And they, right, he's the only one that put him in a safe. And they have since been collected by the FBI and turned over to the National Archives. I mean, doesn't feel like anything's going to come from that. He was very outspoken against Trump's indictment. But they're not worried about Pence.
No.
For sure. November 2nd, 2022, the White House discovered classified documents from Biden this time as vice president in a garage in his home in Wilmington, Delaware, right next to his super cool Corvette that he's got, just right there. Thumbs up emoji.
Mhm.
Doesn't seem like anything's going to come of that one.
Mhm.
Doubt he's going to get indicted. I mean, like, Biden ain't going to get indicted, right? I mean, okay. And also, like, pretty sure his son, Hunter, might have had access to some of those classified
I'm pretty sure he
docs.
was sleeping in his garage. at
Yeah,
some
I'm
point.
pretty sure that he had access to lots and lots of classified information. Okay.
Mhm.
And can any of us forget about the Hillary Clinton email server scandal? No, I thought not. On July 5th, 2016, the FBI released its findings on an investigation into Clinton's emails. Then FBI Director James Comey said of the 30,000 emails, 113 were determined to have contained sensitive, classified information at the time they were sent. Comey said 3 of those had markings indicating that they were classified, and that 2,000 more on top of that were marked as classified after the fact by various agencies. The stink of the matter, she used a private, unsecured server that was in the closet of a residence. I'm pretty sure I could hire a kid to hack that shit.
Yeah.
Okay. Which means that classified information all over the internet, you just had to know where to look. You just had to know where to look and find it. Additionally, and this is based on interviews of her former staff, okay, the reasoning behind this was simple. They said she didn't like to use advanced technology. Okay. This was easier for her. As a matter of fact, back when Blackberries were super cool, she didn't even like let her staff really use them or like hike them around.
That's the same thing as saying Grandpa gets to say those things because he's racist. Because you haven't developed.
Grandpa gets to say those things because he's grandpa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because you don't have the capacity to do what is right doesn't mean that you should be.
I mean, classified. She was the
Exactly.
Department of State. Like, you couldn't hire somebody to fucking do this shit for her.
If they can't,
I
first
mean,
of all,
like,
she's Secretary of State, right?
Secretary of State.
If she is not able to use email and technology, maybe she's not qualified.
Dude. Yep. Right? I would think.
Sorry, continue.
So we said all that to say what? Honestly, we're simply detailing, that's it, the recent history of investigations regarding the housing and misuse of classified materials. That's it. These are real stories of actual events, including Trump and Biden and everybody else. If you think there's a double standard in play regarding prosecution, you're probably not alone, and you're probably right.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably right. Okay.
It's true. It's a lot of heavy, hard stuff.
Over to you.
Let's talk about forgiveness. So I do want to preface this, though. I'm not talking about forgiveness like a nimbly pimbly hippie kind of thing. I'm talking about just actually the psychological benefits of forgiveness and how we can view this in a different light. So there are so many things that we like talk about that are really, really hard to hear, digest, or reconcile with. It does feel like every day there's a new untruth to reveal, a new swath of criminality that's uncovered. And sometimes these topics just seem so unbelievably overwhelming. I know of us personally, there is an ongoing navigation of managing our emotions and trying to be good parents with all of the challenges and more that come with building good kids in spite of stupid grown-up drama.
No, F's a bad word, but you're effing making me say it.
Exactly. So when I think about what keeps us sane, though, what I think about that keeps us kind, what keeps us healthy, I think a lot about gratitude and forgiveness. So in the mid-90s, the American Psychological Association swore in Dr. Martin Seligman. So all APA presidents are sworn in for a year-long term. They bring with them initiatives much like a new political administration would. So Dr. Seligman did something really unique and innovative, though. So he shifted the focus of psychological research into something that's beyond the deep, dark musings of Freud and like the negative pathologies that were frankly really captivating, right? For not just psychology students, but for the public for a really long time. He opted to move the APA and psychological research into something called positive psychology. And so this is basically asking what good things are happening with us and how we can build and grow them as practitioners and individuals. This shift is pretty incredible, and it's largely the reason more like people of faith and philosophy were folded into the science world of psychotherapy, behavioral health, and more, which if you've been in academia at all, it's a very exclusive club, right? If you don't have the right words, if you don't completely like adhere to an atheistic mindset, if you don't have the right credentials, you're discounted. It's very much like archaeology right now, right? Like if you're not in the old guard, it's useless.
Right.
And so this shift was really, really important this became kind of a template for a return to what has in history been called telos, or the Greek word for returning to the ultimate objective and purpose for human existence. It's such a cool word. I really, really like it. But this return to good, rather than diagnosing, this is a return to good, rather than diagnosing all that is just not good, right? So it's basically, if you're a social worker, it's a strengths-based approach. There's a lot of different ways to frame it. So studies began popping up about really unusual and kind of meaningful aspects of psychology, like how we develop wisdom, what dispositional gratitude can do for health, and how forgiveness can actually decrease blood pressure and support healthy heart function, which is just bananas. Like, that's so cool. And a recent study on dispositional gratitude and veterans with PTSD, those that reported higher levels of appreciation for their daily lives, their relationships, and just like their general existence, actually had fewer chronic ailments despite having similar ratings of PTSD symptom severity. So same assessed level of, I'd say, like physiological injury, but the dispositionally grateful individuals had less symptomology, less severity of expression of those symptoms, right? So kind of having a positive attitude made everything else better. Right. So in another study, this was back
Fake it till you make it.
And that's true. Fake it till you make it is a legitimate, actual psychological way of overcoming things.
100%.
It's a really interesting lady that did it. Right?
I've done that shit.
You have to. And anybody who has ever deceived themselves for a short period of time in order to get over something.
I definitely was faking it.
There's a really interesting lady. I think she's from Yale, but she's a proponent of gamification of curriculum. And she had a bicycle injury that had a traumatic brain injury. And she realized as a professor that when she went to work, she couldn't read. She had to reteach herself everything, but she pretended she knew how to do everything until she actually got those faculties back. And then that created a whole other line of research for her. Jeez. Yeah, it's amazing. Anyway, so in another study, this took place, it's back around 2009. There were some high schoolers and they were asked to keep a journal. So it was about a month, I think it was 30 days that they were asked to journal. There's 3 groups. One group was asked to journal only about things they were grateful for. The other group was asked to journal about things that were really hard for them, like little stressors throughout the day. And then the third group was just journal about anything, day-to-day lives. So as expected, after this random assignment to their groups, those that were journaling about gratitude reported higher levels of positive thinking, and basically better peer relationships. Like, they were just kind of happier. They had a better outlook. But what was really interesting was that when they asked about illness, throughout that 30-day period, those that were asked to journal about gratitude had lower incidences of illness than all the other groups, which is fascinating. So forgiveness runs along the same lines as gratitude. So gratitude requires some measure of humbleness. If you believe you deserve all those good things that you get, you're probably less likely to appreciate them. Immediately, I always compare the kid who's bought a brand new car, like a steamboat, versus a South Route kid, right? Yeah. That South Route kid is going to be gifted something that's in the field, and they're going to fix it, and they're going to take care of it, and they're going to know how to use it. Steamboat kid might potentially, not saying all of them, just get bought a car. Who's going to appreciate and value that car more?
Kid got to work on it.
Exactly.
Kid has probably been driving it in the hayfield since like 10 years old.
It's true.
Yeah. And his dad's like, "This is going to be yours someday, son. 6 years from now. Don't beat her up too much."
Exactly. Yes. But forgiveness also requires that humbleness. You are making a decision to release the injustice that someone has bestowed on you. So Dr. Everett Worthington talks about a justice gap when we are injured. We have been wronged, and the amount of injustice is often equal to the amount of correction we desire to kind of balance that scale. So, for example, Ty forgets that we have a planned date night and does something else. I'm going to feel a little forgotten. I'm going to feel a little injured. But if he says, "Yeah, life sucks, get over it," that injury is going to expand. That justice gap widens. That hurt deepens. But if he says, "Oh, I can't believe I forgot that. How can I make it up to you?" That justice gap is filled, and forgiveness is a natural progression to the scenario. So when we experience injustice, when our government lies to us, when the media coerces us, when a person we are supposed to trust betrays us, we have a hurt within us that begs resolution. Our brains and bodies are puzzle solvers. That's why we dream, actually, is because we're trying to get rid of the mysteries of the day. So at every moment, we are tasked with making sense of the world and our place within it. We're always seeking our telos, our full embodiment of being. So when we have an injustice, when we're in a state of unforgiveness and we seek resolution, sometimes we want revenge. Lots of times we want revenge. But that justice gap might be so wide, so painful, so egregious that we only feel that vigilante style of like annihilation is enough to resolve it. You see this reflected in popular culture, right? We love vigilante justice. It's in every Marvel movie that's ever been made. It's in most comic books, right? It's this idea of righting the wrongs with our own means to satisfy that gap, right?
Mhm.
So sometimes we feel, though, that it can't ever be resolved, or that that kind of hurt is going to live with us forever. And that is trauma. That is brokenness. And it is a departure from telos. The Greek word for suffering is pathema. And you've probably guessed that that's where we get the words like pathology, which is the combination of pathos, which is suffering, and ology, which means to study, studying our suffering, pathology, right? So our suffering is not resolved through retribution, though. I mean, it might be ameliorated a little bit, maybe temporarily, but that injustice gap closes and we feel righteous for a moment, but we actually miss out on a more optimal treatment option. Forgiveness is more than forbearance, which if you have student loans, you realize is just a pause in the inevitable. Forgiveness is also different from reconciliation. So because forgiveness is very, very individualized, then reconciliation is actually like a duality. It requires both parties. It's not always possible or even desirable to reconcile because you can't reconcile without trust between parties.
Sure.
People and systems who make it their job to bestow injustice are not those you reconcile with. That's just engaging in an abusive relationship. So, but for your health inside and out, you can forgive. So what is forgiveness? How do you forgive a corrupt system, generational injustice, and egregious acts of betrayal and harm? How do you forgive without discounting or fighting against injustice? Well, and this is not a fully formed theory yet. It's developing. I think we should view forgiveness as an act of anti-fragility. I say that phrase a lot, and maybe it sounds better as resilience, but I see anti-fragility as a behavior of intention. Anti-fragile means that the harms and injustices done to you are not the architects of your identity. Forgiveness prevents those harms from enforcing a state of rumination in which you embody a stress response and struggle to envision a way of life that is without the memory of hurt. Rumination is a state of reflection with emotive qualities. Residing within hurt and injustice for lengthy, harmful periods of time results in excessive contemplation of unsolvables. And we're puzzle solvers, right? You're making yourself crazy. These are not puzzles to piece together. They're hardships that do not have an end. So this cyclical memory is broken only by the powerful tool of removing the adversary, which is the hurt. And hurt, like stress, is deeply idiosyncratic. It is deeply individualized, as is forgiveness. So to me, forgiveness and gratitude are tantamount to resilience and strength, to absorb and overcome, to understand and acknowledge, and let go. These are the domains of warriors. So as we continue to acknowledge and understand and absorb the atrocities of a tainted, corrupt political system, as we navigate the hardships with our interpersonal relationships, as we try our best to embody virtue with dignity, I encourage you to be warriors, to let go of the hold hurt has on you and to acknowledge it and let it go, and to build up your strength to do so at every turn, because the world does not get easier. It does not get more honest, but you can get stronger, and strong people have an easier time in a hard world.
Nice. I want to say forgiveness is about you, not about them, right?
Yes,
That's it. With reconciliation is about both of you, but
exactly.
yeah.
Forgiveness is just like hate and
Kind of like letting
resentment.
go of the animosity.
It is.
resentment.
Because what happens when you resent somebody is that old saying, right? Resenting
Ruins
and
their
hating
day.
someone is you're drinking poison, expecting them to die.
That's good.
It's not me.
Did I hear that?
It's a
Did I hear that somewhere
colloquialism.
else?
We'll say it's by anonymous.
Yes.
Hey, who's our coward of the week?
The coward of the week. All right. For those of you that may not have heard, in case you haven't, Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, killed himself a few days ago in his jail cell at the age of 81. Okay. A quick bio for those of you that may not know the pertinent details of this man. Full name, Theodore John Kaczynski. By name, the Unabomber. Born May 22nd, 1942, Evergreen Park, Illinois. Died June 10th, 3 days ago. Butner, North Carolina, self-induced. Okay. American criminal who conducted a 17-year bombing campaign that killed 3 and wounded 23 in an attempt to bring about a revolution against the industrial system. Okay. Now, interestingly, and little known to most people, Kaczynski kind of had an underground following, especially amongst the younger generation of our time, our younger youth. These individuals are known as childrens of Ted. Children of Ted. Children's.
It's okay. I say underwears.
They've been referencing his manifesto much more frequently now than it's ever been referenced before. To get to the point, I'm going to reference an individual from a website called The Intelligencer. That individual also remained nameless. He discovered Kaczynski and his writings at an anarchist village in North Carolina. Quote, he was camping out with the chickens in the backyard of our communal headquarters a few months later when a crusty old anarchist with dreadlocks and a piercing gaze handed him a dog-eared book called Industrial Society and Its Future. The author was FC, just had the initials FC, whoever that was. He glanced at the first line. The Industrial Revolution and its consequences have been a disaster for the human race. This guy sure gets to the point, he thought. He skimmed down the paragraph. Industrial society has caused widespread psychological suffering and severe damage to the natural world. Made life more comfortable in rich countries, but miserable in the third world. Kind of see that with cobalt mining, right? For all the electric cars out there, all of you guys driving electric cars, bragging about your electric cars, you're enslaving thousands of Africans that are dying daily for your batteries. There's always a trade-off. That sounded right to him. He found a quick nook and read on. The book was written in 232 numbered sections, like an instruction manual for some immense tool. There were 2 main themes. First, we've become so dependent on technology that the real decisions about our lives are made by unseen forces like corporations and market flows. Our lives are modified to fit the needs of the system. And the diseases of modern life are the result, such as boredom, demoralization, low self-esteem, inferiority feelings, defeatism, depression, anxiety, guilt, frustration, hostility, spouse-child abuse, instability, abnormal sexual behavior, sleep disorders, eating disorders, etc., etc., etc. The second point was that technology's dark momentum can't be stopped. With each improvement, the graceful schooner that sells our shorelines becomes the hulking megataker that eventually takes our jobs. The car is a blast bouncing along at a reckless speed of 20 miles an hour. But pretty soon, we're buying insurance, producing a license, producing registration. If we fail to obey posted signs, and cursing when one of those charming behavior modification devices in orange envelope shows up on our windshield. Here's your ticket. We doze off while exploring a fun new thing called social media and wake up to big data, fake news, and total information awareness. It's funny, total information awareness. It's like just too much.
It is too much because you cannot sort out what is real.
Section 96 provided the reader for the first time with information on how to fix America's problem with technology. Quote, in order to get our message before the public with some chance of making a lasting impression, we've had to kill people. He was writing this book while he was killing people.
That's right.
What kind of people? What kind of people? He smoked a total of 3. Okay. One was a computer retail store owner named Hugh Scruton, an advertising executive named Thomas Moser, and a timber industry lobbyist named Gilbert Murray. Of course, throughout his 17-year bombing career, he targeted much more prominent individuals, and he seriously injured many of them as well. Quite frankly, honestly, his writings had some merit. And if he didn't kill innocent folks, much the way a terrorist targets innocent folks, his ideas might have gained some traction. Not saying that his ideas haven't gained traction anyway. Clearly, they have. But Kaczynski was highly capital letters, intelligent. He enrolled at Harvard University when he was 16. He graduated from there in 1962. He entered graduate studies in mathematics immediately after at the University of Michigan, earning a PhD in 1967 and taking an assistant professor position at the University of California at Berkeley later that same year. So, why would a dude as intelligent as Kaczynski resort to anonymous letter bombs? I've never interviewed the guy, though I would have loved to. So I cannot answer that question with any real efficiency. However, though I may agree to a point with a lot of his ideals, especially regarding the degradation of society, I cannot get behind the targeted killing of innocent civilians. The targeted killing of innocents is a non-negotiable for me. It's a non-starter. For me, Kaczynski's cowardice doesn't necessarily stem from his words and writings, but his execution. The man was extraordinarily smart, certainly to a fault, and much like the book Unintended Consequences, he viewed the system as rotten to the core, whose survivability depended entirely on targeted assassination to influence change. But unlike the book Unintended Consequences, his targets were much more vulnerable. And quite frankly, a lot of times innocent. Those that would choose to idolize the likes of Ted Kaczynski might be better served idling the likes of Martin Luther King Jr., Leo Trotsky, Susan B. Anthony, Mikhail Gorbachev. That may seem like a surprising name, but you might want to look him up on what he did. Tegla LaRope, and even Muhammad Ali, who, although capable of extreme violence, refused to participate in what we now know was a clearly unjust war in Vietnam. If one so chooses, one can dig up ample examples of extraordinarily wonderful humans who have overtly fought for the rights of the individual, faced the state head on, and either won or lost horribly. Even the disciples of Jesus Christ, regardless of one's belief or even lack thereof of God and Christianity, put their money where their proverbial mouths were and died violently, horribly, but standing upright for all to see, to represent the cause with their face, body, spirit, and soul unquestionably there for all to see. Cowards hide in the wings. Mm-hmm. Cowards execute unknowing, innocent civilians. Most interestingly, it is the pen, not the sword, that has given Kaczynski new life. Even after his death, It is his ideals that live on, not his actions. His actions were despised, while his ideals are, in some circles amongst our youth, worshipped, quite frankly. If he had kept writing, kept convincing through validated outcomes, he might have made a real difference. Maybe. Though his writings may still will. Who knows? But for his actions and the innocence he destroyed and the families they represented, he's a coward. There's simply no other rational way to look at it.
Agreed. Agreed. Should we talk about some heroes?
I like heroes.
I have two. Dose heroes for the week. All right. First hero.
Dawson's Creek. I never even saw that show.
James Vanderbeek, you classy Dawson teenage heartthrob. You are being vilified for saying such atrocious things like there should be a debate for the Democratic nominee. In a country of free speech.
He's being labeled like a right-winger.
Oh, of course he is.
For saying there should be a debate in the Democratic Party.
Well, that's so crazy because in a country of free speech with origins that are not a two-party system, why is this being demonized and met with adamant resistance? I'm confused. Again, there is a response politically that is based entirely on fear and control. I question any party that withholds desirable and competent candidates from debate. What are you afraid of?
What are you afraid of?
What are you afraid of? What is the danger or travesty or horror in allowing publicly elected officials to, and I know it's shocking, talk about what they plan to do if elected? Do we
It's
not
like
want?
they're going to actually do it anyway.
Oh, that's just horrifically true. But I still want to know. I want to hold them to account to what they promise. Do we not want the best person for the job? Are we not confident in our public to, with untainted information, form their own opinions in their own best interest? For this reason, Mr. Vanderbeek is my first hero of the week. He is logically and publicly asking to support American ideals. Give us all the information and let us choose. We are competent to do so, and withholding it is tantamount to fascism.
100%.
So,
100%.
my second hero of the week is
JFK Jr. That's not your second. I'm just saying, I want to see him get on a debate stage.
I have some opinions about that, some follow-up opinions about that presentation, but that's a side note. My second hero of the week is Mr. Nikola Jokic.
Vittorio.
Yeah.
The Joker.
Nah, he's no joke though, because man of the year in Colorado. This guy, this enormous, wonderful man, just won the NBA championship with the Nuggets and spent the first minutes of this celebration embracing every single Miami Heat team member with kindness and acknowledgement.
Every single one, even the
Every
ones
single one.
even the ones that didn't play.
Yep.
And all the coaching staff too.
Yep. And his two equally gigantic brothers brought with them the familial chaos that I can only assume is part and parcel with three boys. Having three ourselves, we can attest to the chaos despite their combined weight being around 150 pounds compared to the mere half ton of the Jokic brothers. So Jokic is my second hero of the week. He is team-spirited, family-oriented, driven, down to earth, doesn't pretend to be fouled when he's not.
LeBron.
Doesn't parade around with wins. This man is what I like to see in sports. Incredible discipline, incredible talent, insane family that loves wildly and celebrates with equal exuberance. Thank you, Jokic, for being the Serbian cowboy Colorado culture needs right now.
That was beautiful.
And that's it. We done did it, babe.
We done did it.
We done did it.
Good work.